As the world declares war on the coronavirus, another battle has erupted between two of its great powers.
随着美国死亡人数越来越多，炮火升级了。
President Trump repeated the theory of a Chinese lab accident.
I think they made a horrible mistake, and they didn't want to admit it.
事實并非如此。美國 CBS 60分鐘節目專訪曾與武漢病毒所合作的美國專家，澄清了美國政府散布的謠言。
What evidence does the Trump administration have that the coronavirus started in a lab in Wuhan?
There is zero evidence that this virus came out of a lab in China.
He should know. He's an American scientist, has worked for 15 years with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Together, they've cataloged hundreds of bad viruses, research that is critical right now.
The breakthrough drug remdesivir that seems to have some impact on COVID-19 was actually tested against the viruses we've discovered under our NIH research funding.
但是现在，这位国家之光被扣成了吃里扒外，拿着美国钱替中国做事的人。
The NIH gives this $3.7 million grant to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They then advertise that they need coronavirus researchers. Following that, coronavirus erupts in Wuhan.
他是谁呢？
On April 14th, Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz claimed China's Wuhan Institute had, quote, birthed a monster. Gaetz is a vigorous defender of the president. He's been under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for allegedly threatening a witness against Mr. Trump. And he led a protest to delay impeachment testimony. There never was a $3.7 million U.S. grant to the Wuhan lab. But the falsehood spread like a virus in the White House and without verification in the briefing room.
There's also another report that the NIH under the Obama administration in 2015 gave that lab $3.7 million in a grant. Why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China?
The Obama administration gave them a grant of $3.7 million. I've been hearing about that. And we've instructed that if any grants are going to that area, we're looking at it literally about an hour ago. And also early in the morning, we will end that grant very quickly.
That grant was to Peter Daszak's U.S.-based EcoHealth Alliance for disease prevention it does throughout the world. His work was considered so important that last year, the grant was reauthorized and increased by the Trump administration.
昨是今非，因为 Daszak 博士不願替川普背書，他拒絕說出新冠病毒來自武漢實驗室。
Well, I'm a scientist, and what I do is I look at the evidence around a hypothesis. There is a huge amount of evidence that these viruses repeatedly emerge into people from wild animals in rural areas through things like hunting and eating wildlife. There is zero evidence that this virus came out of a lab in China.
Does the Wuhan Institute of Virology, to your knowledge, have this virus in its inventory?
No.
Why do you say so?
The closest known relative is one that's different enough that it is not SARS-CoV-2. So there's just no evidence that anybody had it in the lab anywhere in the world prior to the outbreak.
Daszak 博士不是唯一一个這麼說的人。
Dr. Elodie Gaydin is studying the genome of the virus in her lab at New York University.
People have been saying that's an engineered virus, and it's not. And we know that by looking at the genetic information, looking at the code, and the code tells you a lot.
Human-engineered viruses have common and obvious genetic components, including the virus's overall molecular structure called its backbone.
If a virus had been engineered, it would have used the backbones that we know, and there's none of that in that virus. And let's say it was a brand new backbone, well, it wouldn't look like what it's looking like, because we can find every piece of that virus. We can find these pieces in other very similar viruses that circulate in the wild. From the genetic information, it's clearly not an engineered virus.
Elodie Gaydin and most experts believe the virus, officially called SARS-CoV-2, passed from a wild animal into humans, perhaps in the wild animal market in Wuhan. Many early cases were traced to this market, and a market like it was where the SARS virus jumped into a human in 2003.
A lot of these coronaviruses are found in bats, but we haven't found the exact match. We did find a close match in pangolins. It's an anteater. It's a wildlife that's been traded. People, will consume its meat, but they also use in Chinese medicine its scales.
It comes in this period of time when the president seems to want to lash out to a new enemy every day.
Today, I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization. So much death has been caused by their mistakes.
One day he's blaming the, quote, invisible enemy, the coronavirus.
We continue to mourn with thousands of families across the country whose loved ones have been stolen from us by the invisible enemy.
Another day he's blaming the Chinese.
Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay?
结果不难預料 ，Dashik 博士的研究經費被川普砍了，與武漢實驗室的交流自然也中斷了。
This politicization of science is really damaging. The conspiracy theories out there have essentially closed down communication between scientists in China and scientists in the US. We need that communication in an outbreak to learn from them how they controlled it so we can control it better. It's sad to say, but it will probably cost lives. By sort of narrow-mindedly focusing in on ourselves or on labs or on a certain cultural politics, we miss the real enemy.